The AR-15 rifle is probably one of the most customizable rifles there is today. It's also one of the most popular. Hi, I'm Dave Miles from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and with me is Cory Trapp, gunsmith and rangemaster here at Gunsite. And Cory, if there's anybody that should know about AR-15 rifles and what's popular and what's not, you do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you should have on your rifle and what maybe you shouldn't have on your rifle.
Well, all good AR-15 setups start with a flash hider. This particular flash hider is set up to accept a detachable suppressor. We aren't a big fan of a muzzle brake on an AR because, let's face it, there's really not any recoil from a 5.56 cartridge.
Sure.
But flash is definitely an issue that you should be addressing. The next thing we start to look at are sights. We need to have some kind of iron sight system, but since most of us are running optics, I choose to go with both a folding front sight and rear sight.
Sure. And that way when the optic stops working, you've got something to back up to.
It gives me something to go back to, and folding it gets it out of the way and gives me a better field of view.
Okay.
And I kind of figure if the optic goes down, if I'm real close, I can deal with it even without iron sights. But if it's far away, I'll have time to flip the sights up.
Sure. Great.
The next thing we start to look at, and almost everybody runs some kind of a railed handguard system. The rails give you a multiple options for mounting points, things like vertical foregrips, lights, lasers, just about any accessory you can think of. It gives you a platform to mount that.
And what's great about them is they're universal, and any quick detach mount will hook onto them and be attached quickly.
Yeah, if you stay with a standard 1913 rail pattern, pretty much everybody makes some kind of an attachment that will go directly to that rail rather than some proprietary system.
Excellent. So what would you mount on the rails? Or what? There's not much on there right now, but are there some things that you think should be on there?
Yeah, normally what I'll run on the gun is an infrared laser and illuminator here at the 12 o'clock position. On the right-hand side, I can mount a standard flashlight, but if I'm going to be doing night work, what I usually do is remove this bottom rail cover and put on a combination vertical foregrip flashlight unit.
Okay.
So it gives me navigation, white light, and the vertical foregrip gives me my switching on and off.
Okay. So then you don't tell everybody where you are when you don't want to.
Exactly. I'm able to defeat the light or activate the light, and I can switch hands without having a problem as to where the switch ended up being mounted.
Oh, sure. Good stuff.
The next thing is, what are you going to do for optics? Almost all of us here at Gunsite run some kind of red dot sighting system, an aim point, a hollow sight, some kind of red dot. I'm pretty much a fan of the aim points, and I mount them far forward to get the best effect of using the non-magnified sight, and I always put it on some kind of a throw lever mount so that I can detach it quickly in the event I have to. Some people don't like having a pure zero magnification sight for long distance work. So Aimpoint and others have come up with a magnifier that mounts behind it. And once again, this is done with a simple throw lever mount. So I can remove this and put it in a pocket or use it as a handheld device to observe an area. And it can be on the gun or not, depending upon whether I think I need it.
And it looks like it's hinged, so if you do need it, you just swing it right up.
It just rotates into the sight and then rotates away. So it's available if I want it, and I can even dismount it from the gun if I feel I need to.
Great. Excellent.
Then we start looking at things like charging handles. The factory charging handle with its little tiny flat tab is pretty hard for people to operate quickly. It's especially annoying for people who use the single point sling system, which puts a sling up here and kind of blocks access to that handle. So most of us are running something like the Badger Tac-Latch or similar that gives us a large surface to reach over, and basically if I just hit that lever, it's going to run the gun.
Okay, great.
It also works for left-handed shooters where if they reach over, all they have to do is hit that handle and they can use the blade of their hand
Sure.
rather than having to use a thumb and forefinger and pinch.
Yep. And I know when I took my class at Gunsite, I really liked having that there because for malfunction drills or just charging the, you could just reach up with your palm and swing it back, so you had this gross motor skill rather than trying to reach in there.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than trying to do the claw and grab both sides of this, so that latch gives you a lot more room to grab.
Good stuff.
Then we start looking at stocks, and once again, virtually all of us here at Gunsite run some kind of collapsible butt stock. With our standard stance being fairly squared up to the target, you know, get the armor facing the threat and, you know, get your full body weight behind the gun, the fixed stocks are simply way too long. Right? They're designed for marksmanship on, say, the high power course, where bladed stance is normal, but we really need to make it a lot shorter. This particular stock also gives me a couple of compartments for storage of batteries and other miscellaneous spares,
Sure.
which lets you carry it around on the gun because you give up the butt trap of the fixed stock when you go to a collapsible.
Also looks like it'd be a lot more comfortable. Get a nice cheek weld with that stock as opposed to one where you.
Yeah, the original factory collapsible stock doesn't really give you a flat surface here, and a lot of people do find these angled off stocks to be a lot more comfortable.
Sure. Good.
Then we start to look at pistol grips. The, once again, standard factory or standard military part is a little small for a lot of people. And the biggest complaint is it leaves a big gap right here at the base of the trigger guard. And that gap irritates the knuckle on the firing hand. If you're doing a lot of shooting, I've seen people stuff things like foamy earplugs or put tape over the top of it to try
That's what I use.
That's what you use, foam earplug?
And when that failed, I got some gloves because you go out and you shoot 800 rounds in a week. You need something to protect your hands.
Exactly.
And that is a sharp edge.
So there's a lot of pistol grips now that provide basically a coverage there and make that a smooth transition so you don't need to come up with something to fill that hole for you. In this case, it also provides me another little storage compartment where I actually keep a spare bolt for the gun.
Oh, great.
So I have, you know, immediate spare parts, batteries, bolt, etc., and it's all with the gun.
Outstanding. So what are some of the things that maybe you don't want to put on your AR-15?
Well, something like an ambidextrous magazine catch, for example, is probably unnecessary. You might decide to put one on there because you're left-handed, but the reality is you're supposed to be retaining your magazines anyway. So to reach up and change the magazine with your left hand, as you know, if your right hand is your support hand now, you just use the thumb of your hand to pull the magazine out, put it in the pouch, put a new magazine in. There's no real need to operate that with the index finger of your firing hand. Things like enlarged bolt catches, for example. The only reason you push on this is to lock the bolt to the rear administratively or as part of a malfunction clearance. It really doesn't need to be any bigger than it is. All you're doing there is adding mass. You're adding another lever that you can push on and somehow malfunction the gun. It doesn't need to be there.
Or probably worse yet, something could get behind it.
Exactly.
And start.
Yeah, you can all of a sudden malfunction the gun. If you get something stuck in behind that lever, yeah, you're going to be in trouble.
You're not going to like the fact that everybody else gets to shoot more times than you do.
Exactly. I don't even think an ambidextrous selector lever is a requirement. I find that a left-handed shooter can activate that lever perfectly well with the index finger of their firing hand. It's really not a requirement. Certainly it's not a bad thing, and if you have it installed, I wouldn't take it off. But I wouldn't get desperate to put it on there because I'm left-handed. So things of that nature are probably things that you don't need. You probably want less on the gun than more.
It's fun to dress it up, but more isn't always better.
Yeah, when you can go to a gun show and find out that there's a tactical cup holder that hangs off of your rail, you know you've gone a little bit too far.
Well, there you go. Coffee drinkers out there, you need your tactical cup holder, and you'll be ready to go into the field. Well, Cory, that's great. Thank you so much for covering all these things that you do want on your gun, and maybe a few that you don't. Now that you know what you need on your AR-15, head out there and outfit it, and then head to the range. If you're looking for a place to go shooting, visit our website. It's called wheretoshoot.org. And when you're on the range, remember, firearm safety depends on you.